You remember Judy Garland on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson? The applause, the jokes, that famous smile. But what about after the cameras stopped rolling? Long before they ever started? Let's take a look behind the curtain.
June 22nd, 1969. London. Mickey Deans wakes up in a rented townhouse in Belgravia. He reaches across the bed. His wife is not there. The bathroom door is closed. He knocks. No answer. He pushes it open. She is sitting on the edge of the bathtub, slumped forward. Her skin is cold. She has been dead for hours. She is 47 years old. The coroner will call it an incautious self-overdose of barbiturates, not suicide, an accident. Her stomach shows no large quantity of pills. The drugs had been absorbed slowly over time, the way they always had been, for 34 years. Because here's the part that the obituaries will mention only in passing. Judy Garland did not discover drugs as an adult. She did not fall into addiction through recklessness or rebellion, or some tragic flaw of character. She was given her first pills when she was not yet 10 years old. Not by a dealer, not by a friend, by her own mother, and then systematically, by the most powerful film studio in the world. This is not a story about a woman who couldn't handle fame. This is not a cautionary tale about excess. This is a story about an industry that drugged a child and then blamed her when she broke. Her name was Frances Ethel Gunn, born June 10, 1922, in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, a small town in the Iron Range where the winters were long and the ambitions were bigger than the buildings. Her parents ran a local movie theater called the New Grand Theater and performed vaudeville acts on the side. Her father, Frank, was gentle and musical. Her mother, Ethel, was something else entirely, a frustrated performer, a woman who had tasted the spotlight and never quite gotten enough of it. When Frances came along, the youngest of 3 daughters, Ethel didn't see a baby. She saw a second chance. By the age of 2.5, Frances was on stage, performing with her 2 older sisters as the Gum Sisters. Not because she chose to, because her mother put her there. She was lifted onto the stage before she could form the sentence to say she didn't want to be there. But Frances could sing. That was clear from the beginning. Her voice was enormous, too big for her small body, too powerful for the tiny stages she was placed on. It was the kind of voice that made adults stop what they were doing and listen, and Ethel made sure they kept listening. She dragged those 3 girls to every talent show, every audition, every opportunity within driving distance. The family moved to California in 1926. Ethel was relentless. She managed the girls' careers with an intensity that crossed the line between ambition and obsession. Behind the stage mother's smile was a woman who saw her daughters not as children but as instruments, and Frances was the loudest one. In 1935, 13-year-old Frances Gum signed a contract with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the most powerful studio in Hollywood. The studio that made Clarke, Gable, Spencer Tracy, and the most lavish musicals on earth. She was given a new name, Judy Garland. She was given a salary of $100 a week, and she was given something else. Pills. According to multiple biographies, Garland's mother Ethel was the first to provide them, amphetamines for energy, barbiturates for sleep, before Judy was even 10. But at MGM, the practice became institutional. It wasn't a secret, it was policy. The studio operated on a simple equation: child stars needed to work long hours, stay thin, and perform at maximum energy. The solution was pharmaceutical, Benzedrine, an amphetamine, to suppress appetite and keep her alert through 18-hour shooting days. Seconal, a barbiturate, to knock her out when the day was done, so she could sleep for 4 hours and start again at dawn. Garland described it herself in later interviews. She said they would give them pep pills, then take them to the studio hospital and knock them out cold with sleeping pills. She and Mickey Rooney, sprawled on separate beds, unconscious. 4 hours later, they were woken up and given more pep pills. That, she said, was how they worked. How they got thin, how they got mixed up, how they lost contact with reality. She was a teenager. She was describing her childhood. Studio head Louis B. Mayer was obsessed with her weight. She stood 4 feet 11.5 inches. She was naturally petite, naturally round-faced, naturally not the angular beauty that Hollywood demanded. But Mayer didn't accept nature. He called her names in front of colleagues: his little hunchback, his fat little pig. The studio commissary was ordered to serve her only chicken soup, cottage cheese, and black coffee, while other performers ate full meals in front of her. Informants were assigned to report what she ate between takes. Diet pills were added to the already dangerous regimen. She later said that from the age of 13, there had been a constant struggle between her and MGM, whether to eat, how much to eat, what to eat. She said she remembered that more vividly than anything else about her childhood. More than the movies, more than the fame, more than the standing ovations. The thing she remembered most was not being allowed to eat. In 1939, Judy Garland was cast as Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz. She was 16 years old. She had been under contract with MGM for 4 years. She had already been on pills for longer than that. The film would become one of the most beloved movies in history. Her performance of a song about a place somewhere over the rainbow would define her for the rest of her life, and follow her like a shadow she could never outrun. Every time she walked on stage for the next 30 years, audiences would want that song, that voice, that girl. But she wasn't that girl. She never had been. Behind the camera, the production was brutal. The shooting schedule was relentless. 12 to 16-hour days, 6 days a week. The costume was uncomfortable and deliberately designed to make her look younger and flatter. She was strapped into a tight corset to compress her chest because the studio thought her developing body didn't match the character's innocence. Her diet was further restricted. She was 16 and hungry and tired and medicated. And the pills continued. They always continued. By the time filming wrapped, 17-year-old Judy Garland was already addicted to both amphetamines and barbiturates. She didn't know what it was like to fall asleep without a pill. She didn't know what it was like to wake up without one either. She won a Special Academy Award that year, the Juvenile Award, for her outstanding contribution as a screen juvenile. She was congratulated. She was celebrated. She was told she was special. And she was sent right back to work. Over the next decade, MGM worked her relentlessly. She appeared in over 30 films in 15 years, an output that would be extraordinary for any adult performer, let alone someone who had started as a child. She was paired with Mickey Rooney in a string of musicals, 2 teenagers performing as if their lives depended on it. In a way, they did. The studio made it clear that their careers, their identities, their income, their worth, depended on their ability to keep producing. She married for the first time at 19 bandleader David Rose. It lasted 2 years. She married director Vincente Minnelli at 23. They had a daughter, Liza, born in 1946. That marriage lasted 6 years. Both relationships crumbled under the weight of her impossible schedule, her deepening addiction, and the constant exhausting demands of being Judy Garland, a person who was not Frances Gumm, not a real woman with real needs, but a product. A studio asset with a voice. By the late 1940s, the cracks were impossible to hide. She was chronically late, sometimes by hours, sometimes by days. She missed entire shooting schedules. She suffered what the press politely called nervous breakdowns, what we would now recognize as the collapse of a person who had been medicated, overworked, sleep-deprived, and psychologically controlled since childhood. MGM's response was not help. It was not therapy. It was not even basic human concern. It was punishment. She was fired from the Barclays of Broadway in 1948. Fired from Annie Get Your Gun in 1949. Fired from Royal Wedding in 1950. 3 films, 3 public humiliations. The studio that had created her addiction, that had placed pills in a child's hand and called it medicine, was now punishing her for the consequences of what they had done. In 1950, at the age of 28, Judy Garland was released from her MGM contract. 15 years of service. Over 30 films. Billions of dollars in revenue adjusted for inflation. And they let her go, not because she lacked talent, but because she had become inconvenient. The machine had used her up and moved on. Her ex-husband Sid Luft later revealed that she attempted to take her own life at least 20 times over the course of her adult life. The first attempt came shortly after MGM let her go. She was 28 years old, and she had already been an addict for 15 years. The studio that built her had no interest in the wreckage. The remarkable thing about Judy Garland is not that she fell apart. Everyone expected that. The remarkable thing is that she kept coming back. After MGM, she reinvented herself. Not as a movie star. The studios were done with her as a concert performer, a live act. Just Judy and a microphone and an audience. And she was extraordinary. Audiences who saw her live described an experience that went beyond entertainment, beyond music, beyond theater. It was witnessing someone pour their entire broken life into a song and make it beautiful. Not in spite of the damage, but because of it. Her voice had always been powerful. Now it was something else entirely. It was inhabited. Every crack, every tremor, every moment where it seemed like she might not make it to the next note was real. And the audience knew it was real. And they loved her for it. Her 1961 concert at Carnegie Hall is still considered one of the greatest live performances in music history. The album recorded that night won the Grammy for Album of the Year. She was 39. She was deep in addiction. She was in the middle of her third divorce. And she sang like the world was ending, and only her voice could hold it together. 3 years earlier, in 1954, she had made what many consider her greatest film. A Star is Born, a movie about a performer destroyed by the entertainment industry. The irony was devastating. The parallels were too close to be comfortable. Her performance earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. On Oscar night, she was in a hospital bed. She had just given birth to her son Joseph, known as Joey. Television camera crews were set up in her hospital room to broadcast her acceptance speech live. Everyone, critics, bookmakers, colleagues, expected her to win. She lost, by 6 votes, to Grace Kelly for The Country Girl. It remains one of the narrowest margins in Academy Award history. Groucho Marx reportedly called it the biggest robbery since Brinks. The loss devastated her in a way that went beyond professional disappointment. It confirmed something she had always feared, that no matter how much she gave, it would never be enough. The same message MGM had been sending since she was 13, but she kept going. She always kept going. Television specials, concert tours, London, New York, Los Angeles. Another marriage, to Sid Luft, her third, which produced 2 children and years of chaos. Then Mark Herron, her fourth, which lasted barely a year. Then Mickey Deans, her fifth, who married her 6 months before she died. 5 marriages in total, each one a desperate search for the stability and unconditional love that she had never learned to build because no one had ever given her the tools. How do you build a foundation when the people who were supposed to teach you were too busy monetizing your childhood? By the 1960s, the toll was undeniable. Her concerts became unpredictable. Some nights she was incandescent, other nights she could barely stand. She showed up late. She forgot lyrics. She argued with audiences. She also delivered performances that left entire theaters in tears. She contained all of these things simultaneously. Her finances had collapsed entirely. Her agents and managers had embezzled most of her lifetime earnings. She owed the IRS hundreds of thousands of dollars. The woman who had generated hundreds of millions of dollars for MGM, who had been one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood for 15 years, was by some accounts functionally homeless in her final years. She slept on friends' couches, she borrowed money for meals. She had nothing. She once said that the only time she felt wanted as a child was when she was on stage performing. That single sentence explains everything about Judy Garland. The stage was the only place anyone had ever told her she was enough, not thin enough, not obedient enough, not profitable enough, but simply enough. So she kept going back to it, not because she wanted to, but because it was the only place that had ever felt like love. In 1969, she went to London for what was supposed to be a comeback concert series at a club called Talk of the Town. She married Mickey Deans in March. She was 47. She weighed less than 90 pounds. She was exhausted in a way that sleep could not fix, because sleep for her had never been rest. Sleep had always been chemical, a pill to turn off, a pill to turn back on. For 34 years, 6 days after her final performance, she was found in that bathroom in Belgravia. The barbiturates had done what they had been doing since she was a child. Slowly, steadily, pill by pill, year by year, they had taken everything. First her childhood, then her health, then her money, then her marriages, and finally quietly, in a rented house in London, her life. Judy Garland's funeral was held on June 27, 1969 at the Frank E. Campbell Funeral Chapel on Madison Avenue in New York City. Over 20,000 people lined the streets outside, standing in the heat, waiting to pay their respects to a woman most of them had never met but felt they knew. Inside, the chapel held only a few hundred, her family, her friends, her colleagues, and representatives of an industry that had both created and consumed her, people who had profited from her talent, ignored her suffering, and showed up only now, when it was safe to be seen caring. Her daughter Liza said something years later that stays with me. She said her mother was a victim of the studio system, not of weakness, not of poor choices, not of some flaw in her character that made her unable to handle success, of a system, a machine that took in children and produced money and discarded whatever was left. Here is what we know. A 2-year-old girl was put on stage before she could choose, before she could speak in full sentences. She was performing for strangers. A 13-year-old was given pills by the people who were supposed to protect her, by her mother, by studio doctors, by executives in suits who calculated that a medicated child was more profitable than a healthy one. A 17-year-old was already an addict before she was old enough to vote, and for the next 30 years, every single time she fell down, the world asked why she couldn't just stand up. Nobody asked who pushed her. Nobody asked why a child was carrying that weight in the first place. Frances Gumm wanted what every child wants, to be loved without conditions. Instead, she was given conditions without love. Perform and we'll keep you. Lose weight and we'll let you eat. Take the pills and we'll let you sleep. Be what we need you to be, and we'll pretend that's the same thing as caring about you. She performed. She lost the weight. She took the pills. She was what they needed her to be, over and over for 3.5 decades. And when the pills finally stopped her heart in a bathroom in London, quietly without drama, the way a machine shuts down when it has run out of fuel, the world mourned Judy Garland, the icon, the voice, the legend, the woman who sang about a place beyond the rainbow. Almost no one mourned Frances, because almost no one knew she existed. If this changed how you see her, share it with someone who only knows the rainbow. And if you want the real stories behind more icons, subscribe. The next one is coming soon.